Hey guys, I'm Hellhound, and as you probably already know, my favorite video game system is Super Nintendo. Oh yes, the greatest console ever, in my eyes at least. Love me some SNES. I love my Super Nintendo. I'll never get rid of it. If it ever breaks, I've had it since like the early 90s, and it's still going strong, even today. And if it ever breaks, I'm going to go out and buy a new one immediately, because I can't live without it. It's my favorite console. And so I figured today I'll do a video discussing my top 10 favorite SNES games. Now, I have a lot of Super Nintendo games. There's a lot of great ones to choose from, so just to warn you now, my honorable mentions list, I'm getting tongue-tied already, my honorable mentions list is going to be huge, so brace yourself. So yeah, just dig right in. I'm going to try not to make this video too long, even though it's going to be hard, because I love discussing these awesome games I grew up with. Number 10, I reckon, would be Killer Instinct. Now, I love fighting games, especially ones with really well-done, interesting characters, and this is no exception. I usually play as either Cinder or Spinal, but sometimes Riptor or Glacius or even Fulgor here on the cover. He has some awesome characters, really awesome storyline, revolving around a company called Ultratech that, they specialize in like genetic engineering and aliens and all kinds of crazy science fiction stuff. So you get great characters in here. Also the human characters, Jago and like Thunder and TJ Combo, Orchid. A lot of good memories playing this one growing up. Also have Killer Instinct Gold for Nintendo 64, also known as Killer Instinct 2, on the arcade cabinet. And I used to actually have, in my old apartment, I had a arcade cabinet of Killer Instinct 2, which I played a lot until it stopped working one day. It was already really old and already had problems when I bought it. I got it for really cheap, and I had to leave it there and I moved out, unfortunately. I didn't have any room for it in my new place, so, but, had some good memories with that. But yeah, Killer Instinct is number 10. Great game. Great, fighting strategies. I'll give you a hint. Pick a Cinder and just press forward Y, I believe it is. Whatever forward fierce punch over and over and over really fast, and you'll win like pretty much every time. Until the AI, the computer, the CPU kind of gets I think figures out what you're doing and they start blocking a little better. But anyway, yeah, Killer Instinct's my number 10. Number 9 would be Battletoads Double Dragon, one of the best crossover video games ever played. Right up there with RoboCop versus Terminator and all the various Predator versus Alien media. I love the Battletoads games. I have them all. I have the first one for NES and Sega Genesis. I also love the Double Dragon games. I have all of those for NES. The first 4 or 5, whatever. Having them team up is really, really freaking cool. Rash and Pimple and all that. Teamed up with the Lee brothers, and it was just freaking awesome. Great idea. I usually pick the Battletoads. Whenever I play this game, I choose them. But it was really fun to play with another player. My friends Shadow and Nightmare, they used to come over and we'd take turns playing, as a second player and whatnot. Great game. Love Battletoads, love Double Dragon, and I'm really glad that they made a game featuring both of them. It's just awesome. Alright, next, and this one probably should have been higher, but I don't know. I find myself playing the others a little more. Would be Super Metroid. Now, I have the original Metroid for NES, and I also have Metroid 2 for Game Boy, and I played them several times. So I think this is definitely the best one. This is definitely the best Metroid game. Samus is just friggin' awesome, and there's just so many more moves and weapons and stuff. It's just friggin' awesome. I can never get tired of this game. I love how, as with the first 2 games as well, it's like like an endless, it's not like, level 1, level 2, it's like an endless world to explore, you don't even really know if you're going the right way, or sometimes you backtrack a little bit, but it's just so much fun. It just feels like this gigantic, enormous world, that just goes on and never ends, and you never get tired of it. So yeah, the Metroid games are awesome, and this is definitely the best of the bunch, at least in my opinion. Of course, now, we have the Metroid Prime series, and then I think there's Metroid Fusion. That was like a handheld game, I guess. Those are good too, but I think Super Metroid always been my favorite. Alright, the next would be Spider-Man and Venom in Maximum Carnage. This game is friggin' awesome because not only you get to play as Spider-Man, but you get to play as Venom as well. And of course you fight Carnage, obviously. I love the cutscenes that feel just like a comic book. It's kind of violent for, for like, I guess, a kid's game too. It's so common now and trendy to say, LJN is like the death. When you see that logo in a game, you know it's going to suck. But not in this case, because this game friggin' rocks. I love it. I really love playing as Venom. There's all kinds of other characters from the comic books as well. So many, such a huge wealth of stories, lots of levels. It gets pretty challenging. It's a pretty hard game to beat, but I've managed to quite a few times. But yeah, Maximum Carnage. I'm a huge Spider-Man fan, and this is definitely the best Spider-Man game ever made, in my opinion. Next, I really love Kirby games. Kirby's Dream Land 1 and 2 for the Game Boy, then Kirby's Dream Land 3 for SNES. And then there's Kirby Superstar. I think it actually came out before 3, actually. But this game had like 8. This had 8 games in one, and all of them were freaking awesome. This is the best Kirby game ever made, and I think even modern gamers know this because they actually released a newer version of this, like for the Wii or something. I don't know. I don't keep up with the modern gaming stuff. I'm sorry, but I'm too old school. They re-released this with even more games. I think it had like 12 games this time, maybe. It has Spring Breeze, which is basically just a remake of Kirby's Dream Land 1 for the Game Boy. And then you have several other ones. One where he explores and gets treasures. One where he fights a giant bird called Dynablade. All kinds of one. Even like little mini games. One where he's like does a karate thing, and then one that's like almost like a duel with an opponent. Great game. Kirby's just such an awesome character. He can fly. He can absorb enemies by sucking them in and swallowing them, and take their powers. And then he can even make himself a helper that helps him. It could be played by the CPU or the second player. If you have a second controller and somebody else is in the room, they can pick it up and control it from there on. I think that's just awesome. Kirby has lots of abilities. In newer games, they kind of make it limited. Like he gets tired when he flies too long and stuff like that. But this is the ultimate Kirby game. Always will be. I love it. Next, we got Zombies Ate My Neighbors. Oh yeah, this had to make the list. I love this freaking game. I love the horror movie inspired tone. It's like two kids, Zeke and Julie, I think their names are. The kids wear 3D glasses. Obviously they're huge movie buffs. They go around fighting zombies and vampires and giant ants and aliens and body snatchers and blobs, and it's just endless. Werewolves, chainsaw maniacs, killer dolls. Pretty much every single ghosts, every single horror villain, horror monster from horror and sci-fi movie you can think of is in this game somewhere. There's also like Gillmen, Squidmen, I think they're called in this game. They're like the creature in the Black Lagoon, basically. Pretty much everything you can think of. I'm sure I didn't name them all. I'm sure there's several others. So it's really not just zombies. It's more like monsters ate my neighbors. But I freaking love this game. It's so fun. And I think the Super Nintendo version is definitely superior to the Genesis version. That's another thing I might add. Some of these games, some games were made for both consoles, and usually when both games were made for SNES and Sega Genesis, usually the Super Nintendo version was superior, at least in my opinion. There are a few exceptions. I always thought the sound was better in Super Nintendo, but then again, Sega Genesis, it kind of sounded more like bass heavy and more metal almost, for lack of a better word. But usually the graphics were far superior in the Super Nintendo version. However, they were more family friendly, so games like Mortal Kombat were probably superior on the Genesis version. Alright, anyway, moving on. Yeah, Zombies Ate My Neighbors is awesome. I love it. They did make it to a movie. Check it out. So much fun. I love the setting in the suburbs, too. People grilling out, cooking on the grill. People just, sitting on an inner tube in their pool, sipping some lemonade. It just gives me some good vibes. Next is Super Mario All-Stars. And I didn't want to put too many Mario games on this list, so I tried to avoid that. But this one had to make the list. It features Super Mario Brothers 1, 2, and 3, and also the original Japanese version of Super Mario Brothers 2, here called Lost Levels. Now, the game was way too hard. It was only one player, and it was way too similar to the first game, so I definitely prefer the American version, which is just Doki Doki Panic. made with Mario characters of Super Mario Brothers 2. Yeah, this game combines them all, gives them updated graphics for the SNES, and even you can even save your game this time, which you couldn't on their Nintendo counterparts. Great games, I guess. There's also a version that contains Super Mario World as well, so look out for that. I love Mario. I love all these games, and I was thrilled when they put them all in one cartridge to play. So yeah, I think that was one of the first games I got for the Super Nintendo, if I'm not mistaken. Next, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 4: Turtles in Time. Now, oh my gosh, me and my friends had such a blast playing this growing up. And some people say, like the Street Fighter type games, like the side scrolling fighter, they get kind of repetitive, but this one I don't think does. It's so much endless fun because it keeps it so refreshing with all the different levels. Ancient Egypt, and the dinosaur, prehistoric age, the pirate age, then the future. It's just so many, there's just such a variety. And it's so similar to the arcade version as well. I really adapted it well. Yeah, I'd always get friends over, like my buddy Psycho would come over and we'd play. I wish you could play as 4 players, like in the arcade, but, there was limitations, so playing with 2 people is fun as well. Yeah, and fighting, various characters from the comic books and cartoons, like Bebop and Rocksteady and, Leatherhead and all them. And Krang as the final boss is pretty hard, but it's actually not too hard of a game, especially if you choose, like, the easy or normal settings. A few parts are challenging, but I can usually get through the whole thing pretty quickly and pretty easily. I always choose Raphael, even though Leonardo and Donatello probably have the best weapons, kind of more long range. Then there's Michelangelo with his nunchucks, but Raphael's always my favorite turtle, so I always just kind of choose him out of necessity. All right, and then as for number 9, I haven't really been numbering these, but yeah, this is number 9. I couldn't decide between these two. Donkey Kong Country 1 and 2. These games are both so good. I love them. I kind of give the edge to Donkey Kong Country 2. It's definitely more challenging. This game is really hard at some parts, especially the racing levels. Oh, dear God. It's weird because you don't play as the title character, Donkey Kong. He's been kidnapped, and you're Diddy Kong and his girlfriend Dixie Kong. You have to save him, rescue him from the pirates. Captain, formerly King K. Rool, now Captain K. Rool, a fat crocodile who's the leader of the Kremlins. One of my favorite video game bosses of all time, right there with Bowser and King Day 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 and, all that. But yeah, very fun games. God, when my friends, Shadow, Nightmare, and Psycho and all of them would come over and we'd play these games, it was like going on an adventure. We'd sit that we'd talk about them. Oh my gosh, like so many different landscapes. These games are awesome, and the graphics at the time are groundbreaking. I love what Rare did with the Donkey Kong series. Nintendo, Donkey Kong, that's where Mario debuted. They had, there wasn't really much they could do with that character. Rare gave them a makeover and made them a lot better, in my opinion. And it's sad what Rare has become. They used to make the best games ever. They did Killer Instinct as well, and Banjo-Kazooie, one of the best platformers ever, one of my favorite N64 games. Of course, the Donkey Kong Country series. It's really sad that they, aren't nearly as good as they used to be. Microsoft makes everything soulless, in my opinion. Sorry to say. There's also Donkey Kong Country 3. Now, this game was made after the N64. It was already out, so I think they made this for people who didn't have an N64 yet, and you could tell they didn't put much into it. It's still pretty fun, but it's definitely inferior to the other two, so I didn't put it in the top 10 list. And yeah, so both of these make up number 9. I couldn't really decide one over the other, so I just included them both in the number 9 slot. I didn't want to take up 2 different slots. And part 3 is okay, too. I'd suggest checking it out. You play as Dixie Kong and her cousin, Kitty Kong, I guess, a really muscular toddler. And you try to rescue Donkey Kong and Diddy Kong. And now K. Rool's like a scientist or something. I don't know. Dr. K. Rool, I don't freaking know. But, yeah, great games. Definitely check them out if you have a Super Nintendo, I guess. All right, before I reveal my number 1 pick, like you might already saw it when I took it down, here's some honorable mentions. Okay, Yoshi's Island would have made the list, but I didn't want to put too many Mario games. I love this game. It is so much fun. It was the first game you could play as Yoshi. Well, not counting Super Mario, World where he debuted. This game's awesome. I love it. It was groundbreaking at the time, too. Some good graphics for its time. Also, Super Mario RPG, Legend of the Seven Stars. This is kind of the black sheep of the Mario series. Not too many people talk about it, but I think it's really fun. It is a lot different. Bowser's even a good guy this time. He helps Mario, so pretty interesting. And obviously, it's a role-playing game, like it says in the title. So all kinds of new characters are introduced that we never really saw again after that. Good game. Kirby's Dream Land 3, good, but definitely not as good as Superstar. This continues the Dream Land series, of course. There's a second player, Gooey, and all his animal friends from Dreamland 2, of course. Pretty good game, really fun, but as I said, it's not as good as Superstar. Pac-Man 2, The New Adventures, where you actually don't control Pac-Man in this game. You control yourself, and all you can do is tell him which direction to go and shoot things with a slingshot. And he moves around, and he has a mind of his own. A really fun game, really short. There's only like 4 levels, stages, whatever. But it's kind of frustrating at times because when Pac-Man gets in a bad mood, whenever he's sad or angry, he's really hard to control, and it can really cause some really irritating moments. Chuck Rock, really fun game, great theme song. I love the opening music when you first turn on the game. Oh, it's just awesome. I think it sounds the best on the Super Nintendo. The Genesis version's good too. I think it sounds even better here. There's also Chuck Rock 2, Son of Chuck, I guess, which is really fun. I think that game's actually more fun than this one, but this one had an awesome soundtrack, and it was kind of frustrating at times. I think Prehistoric Man was better. It's kind of the same concept, but more cleverly done. Pretty good game, though. Also, Super Mario Kart, had to include that. A great racing game, the first of its kind. It was groundbreaking at the time. Everybody thinks of Mario Kart 64, which is superior and is, a staple of my childhood. But I played this one an awful lot, too. That was before N64 came out, so that was all we had back then. At the time, I thought the graphics were incredible. Also, another Battletoads game, Battlemaniacs. This is a great game. I prefer the crossover with Double Dragon, but this one's right up there too. Really fun. I noticed they changed the colors of the Battletoads. They changed their name, Rash and Pimple and all them. Their names were different. They gave different names to the different colors. I can't explain. I'm in a hurry. Well, basically, I think the blue one was like Pimple before, and now the brown one's Pimple, something like that. I don't know. I don't really know their names. I'm not like a huge Battletoads expert. I just love playing them. Ghoul Patrol. This is a very rare game. It's a sequel to Zombies Ate My Neighbors. You can see this has the same 2 main characters. Now, I think Zombies Ate My Neighbors was better, but this is more creative. That the monsters are all pretty much original. Like, they invented the monsters solely for this game. You have, like, ghosts and trash can creatures and, like, these weird things that appear and float around. A really good game. It actually has a good storyline, too. In Zombies Ate My Neighbors, I had no idea where the monsters came from. I never explained it. This one actually has an opening cutscene that explains where they came from. Pretty cool. Another great fighting game is Ninja Turtles Tournament Fighters. I wish you could play as Casey Jones. I think you can on the Genesis version, but unfortunately you can't here. Still a great game. There's Armagon, the mutant shark from the future on the cover. Great fighting game. Love the graphics. It really feels like you're playing an arcade game. The Super Bomberman series is really good. Here's Super Bomberman 2. I always play the battle mode. It's really fun. Mortal Kombat 2 and 3. I love the Mortal Kombat games, but I prefer the arcade versions to the ports that they had on, Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis, and PlayStation and whatnot. But I still find myself playing them an awful lot. I don't like how they took the blood out, because it was like so family friendly at the time. But pretty great games, of course. They're probably the best fighting games ever made. It's just, I prefer the actual arcade games. Another great fighting game, in my opinion, is Clayfighter. A lot of people hate this game, but I think it's so creative with the characters. It has Bad Mr. Frosty, a snowman, Taffy, who's a piece of taffy, the Blob, He by Clay, all them. Great characters. Blue Suede Goose, Ellis Impersonator. The moves, there might be a lot of moves, and it kind of limited. There's not much you can do. But I think it's a fun fighting game. I really love the characters, as I said. I also have C2 Judgment Clay, the tournament edition of the first game, and I also have Clayfighter 63 to 3rd and Sculptor's Cut on the N64. Sculptor's Cut was a Blockbuster exclusive, and it's kind of rare. It's kind of hard to find. And now it's actually worth some money. It's worth like $200. So I'm going to be holding on to my copy. I ain't going to be selling it anytime soon. even though this one guy's always trying to buy it from me. And now here's honorable mentions of games I don't have anymore. I used to have all these games, but either I traded them or sold them, or let somebody borrow them, they never get back. Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past would have been number 11. That found its way in and out of this list. The whole time I was making the list, I was in and out. That was really hard for me not to put in my top 10, but I find myself playing the other ones slightly more. Yeah, Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past is a great game. Probably even better than some of the ones I had in my top 10. Yeah, great game. I can't praise it enough. I love the Zelda series. Also, Contra 3, Super Castlevania 4, Mega Man 7, and Mega Man X, both of which I actually recently traded to get a PlayStation 1 console along with some games. Because my PlayStation 2 stopped playing PS1 games for some reason. I don't know why. So I figured, what the hell, I'm just going to be authentic and play on an actual PS1 console. So I traded those games for PS1. I'd already played them a lot. I know they're good games, but I think it was a good trade. Super Ghouls and Ghosts, Demon's Crest, Super Double Dragon, the Final Fantasies, of course, Rock and Roll Racing, which I have on the Genesis, Booger Man, which I have on the Genesis, and Earthworm Jim 1 and 2, which I have on Genesis. As I said, some games I already have on Genesis, so I didn't bother buying them on Super Nintendo as well, even though sometimes the SNES version is superior. Alright, my number one pick, I think you already know, is Super Mario World. This is a great platformer. There's so much you can do. There's so many secrets. There's so many hidden levels, and I've got 100%. I've mastered them all. I've been playing this game for like 20 years. I mean, ever since it came out, of course. When it first came out, I popped it in, and though I still kind of slightly prefer Super Mario Brothers 3 is my favorite Mario game. I don't know. This one comes really close. There's a lot more you can do. Of course, the introduction of Yoshi and the golden cape, when he gets the feather. 2 players, plays Mario or Luigi, of course. New power-ups. There's just so much going on in this game. There's just so much to do. The storyline's the same. Bowser's kidnapped the princess and taken over Mushroom Kingdom, blah, blah, blah. So I guess they go to, Dinosaur Land or whatever. And I love how the whole island, everything's named after a food. Like, there's, Cookie Island, the Vanilla Dome, Chocolate Land, Donut Plains, all that. Cheese Bridge, Butter Bridge, stuff like that. I think that was really cool and creative. And you finally fight Bowser. He's in his flying helicopter-looking thing with the face on it, whatever you call that. I think there's a name for it. I forget. You fight all his kids too, of course. Larry, Koopa, and Lemmy, and Morton, Koopa Jr., and Wendy, and all that. Ludwig. Yeah, great game. Definitely a great success for the Super Mario Bros. 3. This is obviously, essentially Super Mario Bros. 4. Kind of like Sonic the Hedgehog, Sonic and Knuckles was pretty much Sonic the Hedgehog 4, at least in my opinion. They did release an actual Sonic the Hedgehog 4 later, more recently, but I consider Sonic and Knuckles Sonic 4, just like this is Mario 4. Yeah, great platformer, one of my all-time favorites. I'd have to say it's my favorite Super Nintendo game. I find myself playing this a lot. I'm a huge Mario nerd. I know most people probably prefer, Zelda and Metroid, as I said, but, and Mega Man, and Sonic, but I've always been, mostly a Mario fan. I always liked the others too, but I'm mostly all about, love me some Mario. The Super Mario World's a great game. What else can I say? I can't praise it enough. Yeah, I love all these games. I love my Super Nintendo. Lots of great times. I have, probably about 30 more games besides these. I wanted to mention all my favorites. And I think right now I'm going to go hook it up. And I'm going to go play me some Super Nintendo, if you guys will excuse me. Got some fun plans for today. Playing my SNES, the best game system in the world to this day. Yeah, even compared to Xbox and PlayStation 4. Super Nintendo, long live retro games. Alright guys, I'm Hellhound, and that was my top 10 favorite SNES games. I'd like to do a video of my favorite Sega Genesis games next. And I'd really love to do a video of my favorite N64 games, but there's a lot of ones I don't have anymore. Unfortunately, my GoldenEye, my Super Smash Brothers, my Yoshi Story, I let people borrow them, they never gave them back. I know, freaking GoldenEye. Doesn't that just piss you off? So I'd like to do an N64 video, but I want to, get those games again, because I don't want to, not have them for the video. But yeah, so many great N64 games as well. So that video will come soon, eventually. But the next one I'll probably do is Sega Genesis, so stay tuned. Alright guys, I'm Hellhound. Long live old school gaming. Until next time.